On today's show, the Hawks' 5-game winning streak is over. They were resilient, but in the end, not quite enough to overcome a lackluster first half. We'll get into all of what transpired and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2105 of the Locked On Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Tuesday evening into Wednesday. And today's show is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app if your first bet wins. And you head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. And today, I'll be diving into what became a close-fought loss for the Hawks, 120-112. The winning streak for the Hawks is over at 5 games after a spotless West Coast road trip and plenty of good vibes around Atlanta. This is not an embarrassing loss by any means, but they certainly competed. They were resilient along the way, but a pretty tough first half kind of doomed things for the Hawks in this one, even if they did come back and get back into the game by the end. Coming in, these were the two teams with the two longest active winning streaks in the Eastern Conference. The Pistons are absolutely rolling right now. They're now 13-2 after this game, so no shame in losing to the Pistons whatsoever right now. Also, all kinds of injury questions coming into the game, even during the game. 3 guys were questionable for Atlanta coming in before tip-off. Okongwu ended up playing, but Porzingis and Rugiet both did not, so the Hawks were down 3 of their top 7 players with Trae Young, Porzingis, and Rugiet all unavailable. And for the Pistons, Cade Cunningham, who missed the previous 3 games, came back. So in the end, the injury reports broke towards Detroit, and the Hawks were actually underdogs, according to our friends at FanDuel, even at home at tip-off because of how good the Pistons have been playing. And again, what happened with the injury reports with Cade in and the Hawks guys ruled out by tip-off. Early on, the Hawks, I would say, stumbled. They gave up a 20-6 run in the first half and were down by as many as 19 points before halftime. They were down 13 points at halftime. They made a push. They fell back behind by 16 again, made another push, and then I went on a 14-2 run in the fourth quarter to get back within 1. It was I would say, reminiscent of Sunday's comeback win in Phoenix that was very memorable in a lot of different ways. But this time, the Hawks could not get over the hump. The Pistons closed things out with the help of a pretty disastrous 5-possession stretch we'll talk about later on in the podcast, where the Hawks went with 4 turnovers and a shot clock violation in a 5-possession period with the game on the line, and that was not great offense at the end of this one. But I would say, broadly speaking, this is a loss that's not one to be particularly bothered by. There's things in it that were frustrating. The Hawks did not play super well in certain areas of this game, nor was it one where you want to throw your laptop out the window, to quote my friend Glenn Willis. It's one of those where, yes, the Hawks could have won this game. It was right there for them. But losing, even at home, yes, to this Pistons team right now is not embarrassing. It's not overly concerning, but it's also one that was, kind of right there for them at times in this game. Defensively, I would say the first half was about as bad as the Hawks have been in a while, honestly. The biggest thing was that Detroit had their way with the Hawks inside, particularly in the first half. They shot, for the full game, almost 70% from inside the arc and had 66 points in the paint. That number was like almost 80%. At one point, there were 17 of 20 around the rim in this game, and the resistance was just not there. Now, part of that is explainable because the Hawks were playing small. Part of that was by choice, and I have some lineup concerns that I'll share later on in the podcast with regard to Mo Gay not playing more in this game, for example. But being without Porzingis and Rugiet, those guys are both on the slender side of things, but they certainly are very long, and already, kind of being down some of that size and length was not exactly friendly in this game because it led to a lot of time for, let's just say this, a combined, 60 minutes or so for Krejci, Kennard, Wallace, and Caleb Houston. That's just too many for that kind of cohort of guys. So that's part of this as well. But the Hawks also, I think they would probably admit this, and they kind of did post-game to some degree, just were not themselves in the first half, a little bit sluggish. I always point this out, but the first game after a long road trip to the West Coast is a tough one, and the first half was a little bit sluggish, I would say, in addition to all of the personnel challenges. Also, the Hawks lost a turnover battle in this game. They actually had a relatively encouraging rebounding night on defense. That's been a problem all year long. It really wasn't in this game. Detroit only had 7 offensive rebounds in the entire game, so the Hawks did a pretty good job securing the defensive glass. But even on a night when Detroit only shot 10 of 31 from 3, the Hawks won the 3-point line pretty convincingly in this game. And it wasn't enough because just of how good Detroit was around the rim and how physical they were. And they were just a better team for the first 2 quarters, basically. And while the Hawks did play well in the second half, the damage was kind of done. Like, what you don't want to do, I know the Hawks just overcame a 22-point deficit on the road in Phoenix, but you don't want to be down 19 every game. And because eventually you're going to lose one, and that's what happened tonight. Even with some valiant comebacks, I think the Hawks were, again, very resilient in this game. I think you can be encouraged by the Hawks' tenacity to come back. And they keep doing that over and over again, which is good. But you also want to stop building deficits like that along the way. Offensively, it was kind of similar in that it was very rough early and it got better after halftime. They ended up with like a 112 offensive rating in the game, which is below average, but nothing crazy at all. They were not able to run, though, in this game. Forgive me, I've said this a lot lately. I think it's a theme that has to be emphasized. With the current roster available, they have to be able to run to maximize their offense because they don't have the half-court offensive creation that they have traditionally with Trae Young around, for example. But today was their season low in fast break points. Now, I will be the first to say transition points and playing fast is not always fast break points. There is a distinction there where you're playing sometimes fast, but not necessarily on a fast break. But still, a season low was 6 fast break points in this game. That's not great. Now, part of that is Detroit is awesome defensively. Keep that in mind. You're grading on a curve. The Pistons are a top 5 defense right now for a reason. But the Hawks also did not create the defensive havoc that they have been doing. Aside from Dyson, who certainly was getting his hands on lots of deflections in this game along the way, there wasn't a whole lot of havoc creation by the Hawks standards, and that they've been using that to fuel their offense, and that didn't happen as much in this game, which kind of led the Hawks to playing more in the half court, which wasn't like a total disaster, but it was a little bit uneven. Ball security was a problem in this game. Atlanta had 19 turnovers. That's not a crazy outlier number, but it's way more than you would want. And they were the damaging kind. 12 live ball turnovers, and the Pistons scored 30 points directly off of the Hawks' 19 turnovers. That is damaging, especially in a close game. You kind of point to that as a reason, not the reason, but certainly a reason that the Hawks were on the wrong side of this one. They did move the ball well. They had 30 assists again. The Hawks have been really good at generating assists in this recent stretch, but the ball security kind of negated that, I would say. Atlanta did hit 5 more threes than Detroit and still lost the overall shooting battle pretty decisively because of how darn effective the Pistons were inside the arc in this game. Atlanta did finish well at the rim when they got there. When they were able to get to the rim and get to the paint, they got what they wanted to do. I actually asked Quinn Snyder pregame about the potential of facing this elite defensive rim protection team in Detroit, and he noted, like, you still want to get there, but we're gonna have their eyes out. Basically, it was a long answer that Quinn gave me that made total sense. That you don't want to just attack sake, but the Hawks have been, I would say, relying on, and understandably so, relying on attacking the rim and playing fast in this winning streak, and they couldn't really do either of those on as frequent of a basis, and the results kind of followed. Plus, you get an outlier bad shooting night from Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That was part of this as well. Even though he was awesome inside the arc, beat Krejci until the last minute was also rough in this game offensively. So there were highs and lows for sure, but the Hawks did, for half the game, play pretty darn well. And but obviously you have to have 4 quarters of coherent play. My big takeaway, overall picture analysis of this game, before I dive into more granular stuff in a second, was that, yes, the Hawks could have won this game. No, it was not a game that I would be losing sleep over. The Hawks were literally underdogs at tip-off in this game, and understandably so, given the roster that was available. If they had played the way they had played at times on the road trip, they probably would have won this game at the same time. So it's a frustrating one, but I think the Hawks have earned some goodwill with their play over the last couple of weeks to the point where I would encourage anybody that's losing their mind about this one to not do that at this point in time. And the Hawks are still playing well on the whole, even if the first half tonight was kind of a mess at times. All right, we'll get into more of what transpired in this game, my analysis, my player evaluations, and more in just one moment. When SKIMS announced that actually we're going to make underwear for men, the reaction made perfect sense. People talking about SKIMS for comfort for a long, long time. Most guys, though, stick to whatever they've been wearing since college, basically. The same fits, the same waistbands that roll, and a whole lot of settling in their lives. And SKIMS Men's, though, changes all of that. With one upgrade, it's obvious why everyone has been talking about SKIMS. It's designed to feel good, fit just right, also stay put with no slipping, no sagging, no adjusting, and just generally great underwear that makes you feel confident and comfortable. What says it right away for me is they fit in the fabric, soft, supportive, comfortable all day. They don't ride up, they don't lose their shape, and they hit exactly where they're supposed to be on your legs. As well as whether you're working, traveling, working out, or just hanging out at home, these feel better than anything you actually used before with Skims. And I also didn't expect underwear to be a game changer, but Skims completely changes the game and also surprises everyone in a positive direction. You can shop Skims Men's right now at skims.com. And when you place your order, choose podcast in the post-purchase survey and select our show from the menu that actually lets you know that we sent you to them. Plus, the Skims Holiday Shop is now open, so if you're looking for a perfect gift this season, Skims has you covered. Check it out now at skims.com. The NBA is here. The best place to get in the mix. This is FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you actually missed the start of the game, perhaps, or you just want to ride the hot hand during the game, FanDuel has live bets on all the stuff you can imagine, from which team's actually going to win the game, who's going to score next, comeback bids, over-unders, and much more. Plus, you can buy your live bets together if you want to in a segment parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. On top of that, they have all kinds of bet types that you might be interested in, from point spreads to over-unders. They have money lines, game props, player props, future bets, and so much more. They cover all the sports that you love as well. The NBA is our topic on the podcast all the time, and they have that in spades at FanDuel. Plus, the NFL, college football, college basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer. They have golf, tennis, NASCAR, F1, boxing, MMA, and so much more. Plus, FanDuel's really easy to use, and they keep every game more exciting for you. Actually, fast to pay out when you win as well. Comeback bids, final scores, all that at FanDuel. And right now, they're giving new customers at FanDuel $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. So the place to go right now is FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Before I get back into the game, I want to encourage you right now to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check out the show, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And please do me a favor and tell your friends and colleagues about this podcast. I very much appreciate you being here as always. We'll dive in now to how this game kind of unfolded. And early on, it was kind of uneven. Dyson Daniels was the kind of early story. He actually had 3 steals in the first 5 minutes of this game, extending his franchise record to 67 straight games with a steal. Now for Dyson, he's inching up the all-time list in that category. But Detroit was red hot early on. They actually made 8 of their first 9 shots, including their first 5 in a row. A few buckets early on where Duren and Stewart, their kind of two-headed big man combo, was really kind of bludgeoning inside in the first quarter. The Hawks did punch back to get back in the game with a 13-4 run mid-quarter, a couple of threes by Kennard and Jalen Johnson. But there was a lot of interesting rotational thoughts here. I'll go through this now. I mentioned before, but if you missed this game entirely, no Porzingis, no Ricochet. So Porzingis had missed a second straight game with knee soreness. I've not heard anything beyond that from Quinn or anything else beyond that, just to say that out loud. It's at least mildly concerning. He's always going to sit back-to-back, so I'm not worried about that really at all. I know Hawks fans don't like that, but you should have been prepared for that. It has been the case for a long time. But missing 2 games now with some issue in the knee is not ideal. We'll see if it changes in the messaging or the listing between now and the game on Thursday, or whether he comes back perhaps. But knee soreness, 2 games, not ideal, and the Hawks missed him in this game as well. Ricochet, if you missed the game on Sunday, had this really hard fall. I never thought he was going to play tonight, honestly. But it was questionable, which is a positive listing, and shared some positive stuff on Instagram, perhaps. I was told today that Ricochet is day-to-day. That could mean anything. That could mean he plays Thursday. Could mean he's back on Saturday, Sunday, whatever. We don't know. They're at least encouraged. He was on the bench. He was up. Looked like he was moving around fine. So he'll be back hopefully soon for the Hawks. They definitely missed him as well. And then sneakily, this is more kind of further down the list, obviously, but N'Faly Dante, the Hawks' third center, 5th big kind of guy, suffered an MCL sprain of his left knee during the G League game on Sunday. And obviously he's more of an insurance guy, but even tonight as an example, they could have used his physicality as a backup big. And, we'll see on Porzingis. The disaster scenario would be if Porzingis is out for a while, which we clearly do not know right now, but Dante is their insurance big. They might have to add somebody potentially if things go a certain way. Hopefully not for the Hawks, but keep that in mind. Anyway, back to the game itself. They started Veet in place of Ricochet. Then it was Luke Kennard and Mogay as the first subs. Then Keaton came in for Veet rather than with Veet. I did like that adjustment. If you've heard the show recently, I have been kind of ranting about the usage of this 3-guard look with Keaton, Veet, and Luke. That didn't happen at all today, which was the right decision. The Hawks finally, and I do mean finally, staggered Nikhil and Dyson so that one of them was on the floor all the time. That worked out pretty decently, I think, in this game. But also there were, in the first half, they played 10 guys. In the second half, they played 8 guys. And that was because they played Asa Newell, for 2 minutes in the first half and Caleb Houston for 3 minutes in the first half. And that's normal. I think a lot of times you might try to experiment a little bit more in the first half, and it wasn't a back-to-back. We played a lot of guys for a lot of minutes in this game, which is okay after some easier ones on the West Coast trip, plus another day off tomorrow, etc. They pushed pretty hard, but nothing crazy out of the ordinary on that. They were down by 8 actually in the first quarter, and then Keaton Wallace hit a 40-foot buzzer beater off the glass at the buzzer of the first quarter, which definitely helped things. But the Pistons shot very well from the floor early on, and that was a sign of things to come, unfortunately, for Atlanta. The Hawks came out and struggled in the second quarter, missed their first 4 shots, and the Pistons actually had a 20-6 run to open the second quarter. But the Hawks down by 19 points. At that point, the Hawks were playing very poorly, to be honest with you, for the first quarter and a half or so. Offensively, the process was not so bad. They had a lot of shots like kind of go in and out. I was sitting next to Kevin Chouinard of Hawks.com, and Kevin said, like, kind of noted to me, and he was right. Even on the rewatch, there were 3 or 4 shots in the first quarter, maybe quarter and a half, that went like all the way down and out for the Hawks. Not an excuse, just reality. But defensively, it was a total mess for the Hawks. In the first quarter and a half or so, they allowed about 1.4 points per possession. That's a 140 offensive rating in the first 18 minutes. And it was not a fluke. It was a lot of easy buckets, a lot of lapses, like a half step slow on the back end, for example. You kind of missed Ricochet there perhaps as well, but it was, let's just say, very messy. From that point forward, it was pretty good, but the damage was kind of done in some respects. Out of a timeout mid-quarter, the Hawks did make a couple of threes in a row, one by Mo, one by Jalen, to kind of level things off a little bit. There was a monster dunk by Okongwu late in the first half over Isaiah Stewart. I will say Onyeka was excellent in the second half of this game. He was pretty bad in the first half. I think, by the way, he was, again, on the injury report. He was questionable coming in with what the Hawks said was a right knee contusion. He looked to be a step slow. I don't know if he's 100% healthy. I actually wonder aloud right now if Porzingis had played, if they would have given Okongwu a day, because he was not probably himself overall physically in this game, but he got better as the game went along. Atlanta was down, though, by 13 at halftime, and defensively, it was their worst half in a while. They gave up 6-7 points on 51 possessions. The Pistons were 17 of 20 on twos in the first half. 85%. That's not going to get it done. Now, the Hawks were much better and genuinely good for the majority of the second half. I want to emphasize that. Doesn't make everything perfect, but they were good. They scored 5 times in the first 6 possessions in the second half, getting back into it. They actually leaned really heavily into a Okongwu three-point shooting. Again, they ran plays for him. He took 7 more in this game. He is bombing right now. You love to see it. Helps the offense quite a bit when he does that. Quinn won a challenge early on a block, I should say, by Okongwu that was overturned in the positive direction for Atlanta. But they got down by 16 again late in the third after a little bit of a hiccup run by the Pistons. I thought it was a sneaky big stretch in the final minute of the third quarter where the Hawks scored the last 4 points on an Nikhil drive and then a pass to nowhere by Detroit that was picked off by Jalen for free throws. Getting back within 12 there was pretty important. And then the Hawks set that up by going finally to a Okongwu and Gay lineup in the fourth quarter. First 3 quarters, that didn't happen at all. Mo was only playing backup center for 3 quarters. Then they did that, and they went on a run. They went on a 14-2 run behind a 3 by Okongwu. Nikhil got to the rim again. Mo had this flying tip, and I thought Mo Gay, in particular, in the fourth quarter, the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, was tremendous. And I mean tremendous. And with all that said, they got it down to a 1-point game with a lot of time left in the game. But then, after that, Detroit called a timeout, and the next 5 possessions for the Hawks were an unmitigated disaster on offense. In short, I will read them to you. Number 1, turnover. Number 2, shot clock violation, which is basically a turnover. Number 3, turnover. Number 4, turnover. Number 5, Dyson Daniels drives into a crowd and gets a shot blocked. That's 5 possessions, no points, and really nothing good on any of those possessions. In the meantime, Detroit scored 9 straight points, and the game was back to a 10-point margin with 4 minutes to go. Now, defensively, it was better than the offense, but not by much, I will say. And look, I'm not tying my own horn here. It may not have fixed everything, but before that sequence, I literally said on social media that I would have closed with Mo Gay over Vit Krejci. I don't really get the theory of the case. I guess I should say Quinn tends to lean towards making sure he has enough shooting on the floor. And I get that. And the available talent for the Hawks left them some questions that they had to answer. So the Hawks basically had 7 guys that I would say are clearly rotation players that were available. The 5 starters in the game, including Vit, plus Kennard and Gay. And that leaves you with limited options because Luke was not great in this game. And then defensively is tough. So they went, basically the options for the fifth guy on the court were Veet and Mo. I would have gone with Mo. I thought he was a lot better than Veet. That would have also put Jalen at the 3, which is not something the Hawks do. The Hawks want to do a lot of, to be fair. Quinn was asked post-game about exactly this, and he kind of pivoted to saying, like, Mo is behind Jalen and Onyeka. Like, we all understand that. The implication was that, like, they didn't even think about playing up at 3. I would have played Mo, Jalen, and Onyeka together. That's what I would have done. Now, without a pick, the perfect no, offensively, it may not have helped because that's a pretty bad offensive lineup. I got to be honest with you. But defensively, it would have helped, and we'll never know. But there you go. To their credit, again, for like the third or fourth time in this game, the Hawks, when it seemed like it was basically teetering on the edge of being over, came back one more time. From down by 10, they got it all the way to down by 2. After Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they hadn't scored in 3 minutes. Nickeil went kind of crazy. He had another big fourth quarter in this game. Nickeil's been really good as a scorer and creator late in games during this non-Trae Young stretch for the Hawks. But they got it down to a 2-point game, like late in this one. Nickeil got to the line, made it both. Cade Cunningham, tip your cap. Cade was awesome in this game, especially late. He got to his spot in the mid-range and scored to make it a 4-point game again. Then Jalen got walled off by Isaiah Stewart on a drive. It was great defense by Isaiah Stewart, I thought. Jalen was a tough shot. And then Cade scored, and the Hawks were down 6 again. It was kind of over at that point in time. It wasn't actually over, but it was, for all intents and purposes, kind of over. Like, the Hawks were down by 8 in the final minute, and Veet actually hit back-to-back threes, including a crazy make on the second one. But even then, they were still down by 4, and it was basically they had to play perfect from that point forward, and they didn't. So, long story short, like, there were lots of flashes, lots of resilience, and I think that allows you to be a little bit more positive. This team has that, never roll over, never say die kind of attitude that I think endears itself to a fan base. Lots of comebacks. But in the practical term, you also want to avoid those holes. And the Hawks did a lot of digging on their own in this game. Okongwu fouls out at the end. That kind of hurt things late too. But personnel-wise, again, they were a little bit short. And I praised their depth, including yesterday on the show. I did an episode that's still listenable right now about the first, this last 5-game stretch, all these things. And I praised the depth a lot. But look, most teams are going to have trouble when they're down 3 of their top 7 guys. And that happened in this game. So you saw kind of the underbelly a little bit. The bench numbers, non-Mo Gay division, were pretty rough, and that is part of why they lost this game. But long story short, it was not a disaster. It was resilient, but it also was a loss in the end for the Hawks. All right, in a second, I'll talk about the individual player contributions in this contest, plus a look ahead at the rest of the week for the Hawks in just one moment. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make the work easier for you, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't actually work together. That's not SaaS. That's SAD, software as a disservice. And that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace their messy disconnected tools with one system actually designed to give their leaders clarity, speed, and control. Rippling removes all the bottlenecks and the busy work that slows teams down sometimes. Everything when it comes to onboarding or payroll to IT access, etc., runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use. It gives companies one source of truth for their people, their data, and everything that they touch in the meantime. Whether you actually want to run your entire HR platform, IT, finance operations as one, or just want to fill in the gaps with your software stack, Rippling can do it all for you. And right now, you can actually get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. Learn more at RIPPLING. That's rippling.com/lockedonnba. One more time, rippling.com/lockedonnba for 6 months free. Some firms do it all: divorce, criminal, real estate, and sometimes they might even do injury cases, but that could cost you. Without the right focus, you might actually get the attention that you really deserve. And at John Foy Associates, they focus 100% on personal injury law, car accidents, truck crashes, serious injuries. That is it at John Foy. When you call them, you're not just getting a lawyer that's struggling with different kinds of cases all the time. Instead, you're getting a team that's built directly to win for you. They treat every single client with dignity and compassion and respect, and they're available 24/7. Take your call at John Foy. And the best part is you pay absolutely nothing until John Foy wins your case with no upfront costs. If I got into a wreck, I know exactly who I would call, and that's the strong arm, John Foy Associates, to help thousands of different clients get justice and real money in their pockets. If you've been injured in a car accident by a negligent driver, do not let the insurance company rip you off. Get the justice and the money that you deserve by calling John Foy Associates right now today at 404-400-4000. That's 404-400-4000, or by visiting johnfoy.com to get started. They don't just settle, they win. Get the strong arm called Attorney John Foy Associates today. All right, and 10 guys appeared in this game for the Hawks. 2 of them played very little. Asa Newell, 2 minutes. Caleb Houston, 3 minutes. That was fine with me. I might have tried Jacob Toppin at some point. I think the Hawks should have, at some point in the last couple of weeks, tried Jacob Toppin more aggressively. I think he is more of a ready-made contributor, two-way guy than some of these, but alas, Houston was fine. Just had his 1-3 rattle in and out. It was a pretty good look. Just missed it. Asa, didn't do much, but was not like a disaster either in his 2 minutes. Keaton Wallace, 13 minutes, 7 points, 2 assists for Keaton, had a steal and a turnover. He one of his 2 shots that he made was the 40-foot bank shot, but hey, it went in. I thought Keaton was not a disaster in this game by any means. He was fine-ish. He had trouble getting by the likes of Ron Holland and Asar Thompson. That's not a shot at Keaton. Most guys cannot drive by Ron Holland and Asar Thompson. Keaton couldn't either. But the bench minutes were just kind of uneven. They weren't like a total disaster, and I did appreciate that Quinn did not try that 3-guard look in this game that has not been working whatsoever in recent days. Luke Kennard was too quiet for my liking. 3 points, 5 assists, 3 fouls, had a steal and turnover. Defensively, Luke was pretty overmatched in this one. I thought both Luke and Vit Krejci had really, really rough defensive games. That's not a shock. They are undermanned. And as I said literally yesterday on the show, Luke is the only guy that's like a clear negative defensively without Trey around, and they picked on him a little bit. The Detroit, as they should have, honestly, in this game. He didn't shoot enough for my liking either. Did pass the ball well with 5 assists, but I think it was right that he didn't play more than he did in this one. Moge was awesome in the fourth quarter. Like, truly, that 5-minute stretch was like powerful stuff defensively in particular. 11 points on 10 shots for Mo. He was 1 of 5 from 3. Like, I like that he does let it fly, but he's not the best shooter at the moment. Did have 11 rebounds, including 7 offensive rebounds. He was the only. It's funny. The Hawks had 11 offensive rebounds in this game. They were secured by exactly 2 players. Mo had 7. Dyson had 4. Nobody else had any, which is kind of interesting. But Mo also had a block shot, was a game best plus 17 for the Hawks, and played very well. And as I said before, he should have played more, I thought, down the stretch of the game. To the starters, Vit Krejci, 36 minutes. That's too many. I get it. I thought it was fine that he started without Zach. They are kind of deficient there. V's been playing well recently. Obviously, they've been bombing 3-point shots recently. But until the final minute of the game, which was not garbage time, but it was like scramble mode, V was 1 of 6 from the floor and defensively was getting picked on and had 2 turnovers, 2 assists. Like, he didn't play well in this game. Again, he's been good the last couple of weeks. I think that's a bargain contract, all those things. He was, I thought, overplayed in this one. And also, if you're going to play V late in the game, as they did, then use him. Like, they were kind of burying V in the corner as just a pure, like, corner spacer. Mo Gay can do that. Like, they would have guarded Mo less probably, but defensively and off the glass, he would have been more helpful. I just didn't see the theory of the case there, but it wasn't a disaster, but it wasn't his best night by any means. The other 4 guys were mostly good with some hits and starts. So Okongwu fouls out. Second half, Okongwu was awesome. First half, Okongwu was pretty bad. And again, I think it was probably because, at least to some degree, he is banged up right now, being questionable in the injury report. But defensively, it was not his best work. He had 1 rebound in the game. That's not ideal. But to be fair, the Hawks did rebound well as a team, which matters. He was 4 of 6 on 2s, 4 of 7 from 3, did foul out, 5 turnovers. So the first half, I think he had 4 turnovers and was like kind of a mess. Second half, he had some truly special plays, a couple nice passes. The shooting's come along well. So it was a kind of a Jekyll Hyde night for Onyeka. He was fine overall, but it was certainly highs and lows along the way. Dyson Daniels, 12 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and a block. Plus 4 in the game for Dyson in an 8-point loss. He was more aggressive as the game went along. He still just is not shooting threes. He just won't do it. He's got to start doing that again. I'm not saying you got a bomb, but last year he was taking like 3 or 3.5 a game. This year it's less than 1. That's got to change. But I thought he was more decisive in the second half, more effective. The passing was good. I thought he played it pretty well. Nikhil had a good game other than 3-point shooting. He was 8 of 11 on 2s, and his drive game finishing around the rim has been hugely valuable for this Hawks team, especially late in games. But 1 of 9 from 3 in this one. Picked a bad night to have a bad shooting night. It happens sometimes. He played well overall. He was not the problem in this game for the Hawks. And lastly, Jalen Johnson, 25, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 turnovers for Jalen. I think his stats were better than he actually played. I don't think he was bad, but defensively, he was a half step slow for like a lot of this game, I thought, which is understandable. He's been playing, obviously had a big day yesterday with Player of the Week. He's been playing awesome. The passing's been really good. He was kind of being asked to do a lot more late as the on-ball like primary option offensively, which is a learning experience for Jalen. Like he's not done it before for a lot of the time. So I don't think it was a bad game for Jalen at all. I think it says something about him in a good way that he can have a pretty like middling game and have 25, 9, and 8. That's obviously very impressive stuff. I talked about him a lot yesterday, so I'll leave it there for now. But I thought he was just okay, and in the end, nobody was. Yeah, it was fine. Last thing before we get out of here and I'll look ahead, the Hawks recognized Bob Rathbun, the television voice of the Hawks, tonight for his 30 years. Yes, 30 years of calling Hawks games on TV. I want to shout out Bob, a friend of mine, legitimately, and that's weird to say as someone who grew up literally listening to Bob call games on TV. The fact that we are friends and I text Bob and talk to Bob is strange in the best possible way. But shouts to him. Bob is a listener to the podcast, so he'll probably hate that I did this. But shouts to Bob. I was glad I did that. 30 years is crazy to be doing the job and basically the voice of my basketball watching life. So shouts to Bob on that. And then the last thing before we get out of here is the Hawks play again on Thursday. They travel on Wednesday to San Antonio for a 2-game road trip. They were just on the road for a long time. They're back on the road again now. They play Thursday in San Antonio. I mentioned this yesterday briefly on the show, but they play a shorthanded Spurs team on Thursday. Victor Wembanyama is out, as is Stephon Castle. So 2 of their top 3 or 4 guys in terms of like Q score, and Wemby's like a top 10, top 5 player in the league already, are out. I will say the Spurs won tonight at home without those guys. Now they were playing the Grizzlies, who are in a bad place right now for sure. So that's part of that. But I think people are going to assume that the Spurs game on the road is easier than it actually is. It's not. It's obviously a good break for the Hawks that Wemby's not playing and Castle's not playing. As a basketball watcher, a person covering the game, I'd love to watch Wemby and Castle play. As if you're invested in the Hawks and the Hawks only, and all you care about is the win, it's obviously easier to get the win against a shorthanded Spurs team than it is against a full-strength Spurs team. But I will also say, not a walkover game. It's still a road game. They are, they still have De'Aaron Fox, for example. They got Harrison Barnes. Like they got guys that you would recognize on that team. Luke Cornett's a good center, for example. Devin Vassell's a good player. Keldon Johnson's fine. They got some guys still. That's not a walkover by any means. And from there, they go to New Orleans for the rare, like, kind of double game on Saturday, where the Hawks are rooting, of course, against the Pelicans all year long, and then, of course, playing them on Saturday. And we'll get into that game later on this week. But a manageable road trip, but one that I don't think you can assume 2-0. Obviously, that's the goal for any trip, but especially, and I would say this time, a manageable goal for the Hawks. But keep an eye on that on Wednesday. And one more PSA, I am planning to have an NBA draft guest on for the first time since the season began. That will hopefully be dropping on Wednesday evening into Thursday, so please stay tuned for that as well. And please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. I appreciate you doing that very much. It helps me, helps the show, helps the network, all that fun stuff. And also, you get a lot of Hawks coverage. We are 5 days a week, if not more than that, during the season. And we are always busy on the show. So please leave 5-star ratings and reviews. Follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. Follow me on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. And follow my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks if you want to at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening into Wednesday, and we'll see you all next time.